Okay, so just imagine if grading papers was like instantaneous.
Oh, wow.
No more like late nights hunched over these giant stacks of essays. And maybe, just maybe, the feedback is a little less influenced by how the teacher's feeling that day.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
This potential for AI to, tackle that massive task of grading essays.
It's definitely an area that's, ripe for some innovation, I'd say.
Right.
And researchers are really making some good strides there.
And we've got this research paper. And get this, the title is Documento sin titulo,
Oh, interesting.
which translates to untitled document.
Very, very straightforward.
Yeah, they got right to the point there.
Yeah, thankfully the content's a lot more interesting.
Right.
It basically lays out the system for how to automatically score essays using natural language processing.
NLP, for those who aren't familiar,
Yeah.
think of it like Siri or Alexa. But instead of, setting timers and telling you the weather,
Right.
it's analyzing, like dissecting your writing and giving it a grade. Makes you think twice about that last text you sent, right?
Well, definitely.
But before we get into, the how of it all,
Right.
the paper starts by really addressing the why. Like, why would we even want AI to do this in the first place?
Right.
I mean, teachers have been grading essays forever.
Yeah.
Some might say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Right.
So what's the counter argument here?
Well, think about it. How much time do teachers spend
Oh, so much.
just hunched over essays,
Yeah.
marking every little error, every comma splice, awkward phrasing.
Yes, all of that, yeah.
And that's time they could be using for, more interactive lessons, more engaging things.
Yeah, exactly.
And plus, let's be honest, human judgment, it's not always perfectly consistent, right?
Right.
We all have our own little preferences,
Of course.
even when we're trying to be objective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the draw here is that you get a system that's faster,
Right.
more consistent,
Yeah.
and maybe even, more fair and equitable.
Yeah, I see.
But for that to work,
Right.
the system really needs to understand those essays on like a deeper level,
Yeah.
not just, the surface errors.
Right, like actually get the meaning.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where NLP really comes in.
Okay, so let's break it down. Let's look inside this AI grading machine
Yeah.
and see, how it ticks.
Okay.
The paper, it goes into a lot of detail, which is great for us.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a multi-stage process.
It is, yeah.
Each step kind of builds on the last one. So first we've got this pre-processing stage.
Yes.
I think of it like a digital janitor for text.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So it's scrubbing away all the unnecessary characters,
Yeah.
breaking the essay down into like these digestible chunks, sentences, words, like the building blocks of the meaning.
Right.
Then you've got structural analysis. So here the system is checking, okay, is this organized?
Yeah.
Is there a clear intro body conclusion? Is the argument like logically structured?
Yeah.
So it's like the blueprint, the architectural blueprint of the essay.
Right. Making sure all the pieces fit together.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we get to the brain power, I guess you could call it, the
Right.
semantic analysis. This is where the system really, flexes its AI muscles.
Okay.
It uses something called BERT,
Right.
which has really become like a rock star in the world of NLP.
Yeah. I mean, for our listeners who might not be familiar, let's just do a quick BERT breakdown.
Okay, yeah.
It's this language model that's been trained on like a truly massive data set of text and code.
Right.
It's learned all the patterns of human language.
Right. All the nuances.
It's like the ultimate bookworm with a photographic memory.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So the system uses BERT to compare the essay's meaning
Right.
to the grading criteria that the teacher set.
Yeah.
So like, is the argument clear, supported by evidence, relevant to the prompt, all that good stuff.
Exactly.
So it's not just looking for typos and grammar mistakes.
Right.
It's going deeper than that. It's
Yeah.
evaluating the substance of the writing.
Exactly.
And then, based on all of that, it spits out a grade.
Yeah. Based on a rubric?
Right, following the same guidelines as a teacher. Just, much, much faster.
Much faster.
But here's the thing that I find really, really interesting.
Okay.
This whole system, it's not just programmed with all the right answers.
No.
It actually learns.
Yeah.
Like it's a student itself.
It's like an AI apprentice.
Oh, I like
learning from the masters,
So they feed it a ton of essays that have already been graded by experts, human experts.
Like that.
And through that process, it starts to figure out,
Yeah.
okay, this is what good writing looks like.
Right.
This is bad. This is in between.
All the different variations.
And they emphasize in the paper that the training data has to be diverse.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
So we're talking essays on all different subjects, from different levels of students, different backgrounds.
It's all about preventing bias.
Right, that makes sense.
If the AI only ever saw, essays about Shakespeare,
Right.
it wouldn't do so well grading a physics paper.
Right.
So by giving it all these different styles and topics,
yeah.
it becomes a more fair and more accurate judge overall.
Now, I know our listeners, they love a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the tech side a little bit.
Okay.
The paper mentions some of the tools that they use to build this system.
Yeah, they use some really powerful tools like Spacey and NLTK.
Yeah, those are big ones.
For that pre-processing stage we talked about.
Right. Remember our digital janitor?
Yeah, yeah.
So Spacey, it's amazing at analyzing sentence structure, identifying parts of speech. And then NLTK helps the system understand relationships between words and concepts. So it's like Spacey's the grammar police.
Yeah, I like that.
Making sure everything is in order. And then NLTK is more like a detective, figuring out what it all means.
I love it.
And then, of course, we've got BERT.
Yeah, BERT's the star.
Right, when it comes to understanding the nuance.
Yeah, the meaning behind the words.
And they're really careful about calibrating all of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like making sure that the system isn't punishing a student for using a synonym.
Right.
Or for having a different writing style.
Exactly. Especially when we're talking about using AI in education. We don't want to stifle creativity.
No, absolutely not.
Or penalize students for thinking outside the box.
Right.
We want to encourage that.
So the big question is, how well does this thing actually work?
Right.
What were the results?
Well, they're pretty impressive, actually.
Okay.
In their tests, the system got an 85% correlation with human graders.
Wow, 85%. That's really good.
That means it's scoring these essays pretty close to how a human teacher would.
Yeah.
Which is pretty remarkable.
I mean, that's really impressive.
It is.
But even with that score, the paper, it does say there's still room for improvement.
Of course, yeah.
It's not like a finished product.
It's an ongoing area of research.
Right. They're very upfront about that.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some of the challenges that they're facing?
Okay.
Like, where does this AI grader still need some tutoring?
One of the big ones is dealing with those essays that need more subjective evaluation.
Okay.
Like creative writing, persuasive essays, anything where there isn't necessarily one right answer.
Right.
It's one thing to catch a misplaced comma.
Right.
But how do you teach an AI to, judge how effective a metaphor is,
right,
or how persuasive an argument is?
Yeah,
that's a whole different ballgame.
That's tough.
It is, and it's something researchers are really grappling with.
Yeah.
Like, how do we make sure this system isn't just looking at like surface level correctness, but it's also recognizing those deeper qualities of good writing. Those things that are harder to put into numbers, to quantify.
Yeah, the je ne sais quoi.
Exactly.
It's almost like we need to teach this AI to think like a writing professor.
Yeah.
Someone who can really appreciate the nuances of style and argument.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's going beyond just the mechanics,
right,
into the realm of like critical thinking and interpretation.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because if we can do that,
right,
if we can create an AI that can really understand and evaluate that kind of writing, I mean, the implications for education are huge.
They are, yeah.
It's about more than just, making grading easier.
Right.
It's about a tool that can actually help students become better writers.
Yeah. Better thinkers. Better communicators.
Yeah. And that's a topic I think is worth diving into a bit deeper.
Definitely.
So stay tuned as we explore that potential impact of AI grading on the future of learning.
It's going to be interesting.
It is, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I mean, it really makes you wonder, what would the classroom look like if AI could, take on some of that grading work?
It's such a fascinating thought, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say we're not talking about replacing teachers.
Right.
It's more like giving them a superpower.
Yeah.
A tool that can handle the more routine stuff.
Yeah.
So they can focus on what humans do best.
Exactly. I mean, imagine a teacher, freed from hours and hours of grading.
Oh, yeah.
Able to spend that time actually, crafting these really engaging lessons.
Right.
Working one-on-one with students, fostering that creativity that an algorithm just can't quite replicate.
Yeah, because let's be real. I mean, no matter how much you love teaching,
Right.
those marathon grading sessions, they can drain you.
They really can. They can suck the joy out of anything.
And think about the benefits for the students.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every student, no matter their background or their resources, could have access to this immediate and consistent feedback on their writing.
And that's huge.
It's a game changer.
It is.
No more waiting days or weeks for feedback.
Yeah, which can be really discouraging.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially for students who are already struggling,
Yeah, absolutely. They could get that feedback right away.
Right.
Make adjustments, play with their ideas.
Iterate.
Yeah, iterate.
And ultimately become more confident, better writers.
Exactly.
Speaking of iteration,
Yeah.
one of the things that really jumped out at me in the paper was this idea of continuous learning. This system, it's not static.
Right.
It's constantly evolving, getting more accurate, more nuanced over time.
That's the beauty of AI, right?
It really is.
The more data it gets, the more essays it analyzes, the better it gets, the more refined its algorithms become.
It's like having this tireless TA.
Yeah.
That's constantly learning and growing alongside the students.
Right, learning right along with them.
It's almost like this AI is going through its own educational journey.
It's like AI is going to school, too.
Right. But of course, with any new technology, especially one that's going to play a role in shaping young minds, we have to talk about, the potential downsides.
Of course, yeah. And the paper is very open about this.
Oh.
They talk about, how important it is to keep testing and refining it.
Right.
And making sure that the system is truly fair and unbiased.
That's key, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to use AI to assess how students are learning,
yeah,
we have to be absolutely sure it's not, making existing inequalities worse.
Right, or creating new ones.
Or creating new ones, exactly.
And we need to be really careful about the data that's used to train these systems, making sure it represents, a diverse range of writing styles, backgrounds, perspectives.
So we don't want the AI to accidentally, favor certain types of writing.
Right, exactly.
Or penalize students who don't fit a particular mold.
Yeah, we want it to be as fair as possible.
And that brings us back to the challenge of those more subjective essays.
Right.
The ones you can't just easily score on a rubric.
Yeah, those are tricky.
How do you teach an algorithm
Yeah.
to appreciate the artistry of language, the power of a good argument?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And researchers are definitely working on that.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it involves incorporating more qualitative feedback, maybe having the AI offer suggestions.
Oh, interesting.
Or even, pose questions to the student
Right.
to get them thinking more deeply.
Yeah, to encourage that deeper thinking.
Exactly.
Almost like a virtual writing coach.
Yeah, I like that.
Instead of just giving a grade.
Yeah, more like a guide.
It's guiding them to improve.
Right.
It kind of flips the script, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Instead of being afraid of the AI grader,
Right.
you're actually excited to work with it.
Yeah, to see what it can teach you.
To see what insights it can offer.
Yeah, that's a really important shift in perspective.
It is, because at the end of the day, technology is a tool.
Right.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about the impact of AI grading on, individual students and teachers. But let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What does this mean for the future of education as a whole?
That's where things get really exciting, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can free up teachers' time and energy,
Right.
what could they do with that?
That's a good question.
What new ways of teaching and learning could we come up with?
It's like we're on the verge of a major shift in how we think about education.
It really feels that way, yeah.
Imagine, personalized learning paths, AI tutors that adapt to each student's needs.
Right. And systems that can identify students who are struggling before they even realize it themselves.
It's almost utopian, isn't it?
It does sound that way, but I think it's within reach.
I think so, too.
It's not just AI tutors. I mean, imagine systems that can alert teachers and offer support to those students.
Yeah, it's about creating this more equitable and supportive learning environment.
Exactly, for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
It's about giving every student the tools they need to reach their full potential.
No matter what their background is or their learning style.
Right, no matter what.
Of course, with any big technological change,
Mm-hmm.
especially in something as important as education,
Right.
we have to be really thoughtful.
Yes.
We can't just, throw technology at the problem and hope for the best.
We have to be mindful of the unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
And we have to make sure
Yeah,
that these systems are being developed and used responsibly.
with students' best interests at heart.
Always. Yeah.
We don't want to create a world where learning becomes, like, cold and impersonal,
No, absolutely not.
devoid of that human connection.
It should enhance those human connections,
Exactly.
not replace them.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've explored, how AI essay grading works,
Yeah.
the potential benefits,
The challenges.
the challenges, all the big questions.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the future of education is in our hands.
It really is, yeah.
It's up to us to decide how we want to integrate these technologies.
How we want to shape that learning experience for future generations.
We've come a long way from stacks of papers and, all-nighters grading.
Yeah, we have.
And while the road ahead, might have some bumps,
Right.
it's also a road that's full of incredible opportunities
Absolutely.
to really reshape how we learn and teach for years to come.
I completely agree.
I don't know about you, but it really feels like we're at the beginning of a whole new era in education.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So many possibilities.
It really does.
And it's not, it's not just about taking over grading.
Right.
It's about, rethinking the whole experience of learning.
Exactly. Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
These personalized learning paths that we were talking about, AI tutors, that can actually adapt to each student systems
Yeah.
that know when a student is struggling before they even realize it.
It's about, taking all this technology
Yeah.
and using it to create this learning environment that's actually good for everybody.
That's equitable. That's effective.
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously with any big change like this,
Yeah.
especially something like education,
Mm-hmm.
we got to be careful.
Absolutely. We can't just, throw AI at the problem and hope for the best.
Right, exactly. And that's where these conversations about ethics,
Mm.
responsibility, all of that becomes so important.
Yeah, we have to make sure these systems are being built the right way.
Right.
And used in a way that actually helps students.
Right, that benefits everyone.
Yeah.
And not create new problems, new inequalities.
Right, we don't want to make things worse.
Exactly. And we can't, I think this is really important, we can't forget about the human element.
Oh, for sure.
Technology, it should be there to support those connections in the classroom, not to replace them.
Yeah, it should enhance those connections, not get rid of them.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave everyone with this.
Okay.
We've talked about the potential,
Mm-hmm.
the challenges, all the big questions about this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the future of education,
Yeah,
it's up to us.
it really is.
We get to decide how we use these technologies,
Yeah.
how we shape learning for future generations. I mean, think about it. We've come such a long way from piles of papers
I know, right?
and those late nights grading
All those red pens.
and, the road ahead. It might have some bumps,
Oh, for sure.
but it's a road full of really exciting possibilities
Yeah.
to change how we learn, how we teach for years to come.
Yeah, I'm actually really optimistic about it.
Me too.
I think it's going to be good.
So thanks for joining us on this journey into AI and education.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning,
Keep exploring.
and keep imagining what's possible.
Absolutely.